finally cruising Merritt Island to Palm Beach. This is the end of the first day. I got a late start and I'm anchored next to this little island at the west side of the barge canal that goes from the Banana River by Port Canaveral to the Indian River. And after putting the boat in the water, I've gone through the barge canal, which you're supposed to go slow there, so that takes quite a bit of time. So I've got that behind me. And I'm anchored just on the Indian River side of the barge canal. The Intercoastal Channel and Indian River goes underneath that great big high bridge there. And this again is that little island that I'm anchored next to. And it's the end of the day, the sun is setting. It's a good time to get anchored up and situated for the night. And I get this bonus flyby from the pelicans. It's almost sunset and a lot of birds seem to roost on this little island at the end of the barge canal. And so they're all flying in at the end of the day now and landing, and they'll spend the night perched in these trees. This is the next morning. The boat is underway and I'm heading south down the Intercoastal Channel. And the Indian River is very wide at this point. I can actually leave the helm for a minute or so to go to the bathroom or get something out of the refrigerator or whatever I need to do. And I can easily sit around any place on top of the boat where I got a good view forward so that I can see if there's any other boats around or if I need to make corrections to the autopilot to keep the boat cruising up the main channel. The autopilot is new to me. I just added it over the winter along with this chart plotter and a Sirius satellite weather overlay on my chart plotter. Here I'm going forward to the fly bridge and laying down on top of some of the storage boxes that I added to the boat in the previous video. My back hurts if I stay in the driver's seat or any one position for extended periods of time. So it's nice to be able to rest and to move around and have different places to sit on top of the boat where I can see where I'm going. This is the little sofa on the fly bridge itself. Otto is driving, the autopilot. But I can't really trust him all the time. Otto's a crazy man. He'll drive the boat into stuff if it doesn't get out of his way. So I have to go and actually take control and turn Otto off from time to time. While Otto's driving, it's very relaxing. It's like being a passenger on the boat, really. A lot of other boats went past me going much, much faster than I'm going. Here I'm doing an experiment. I've shut down one of the engines and increased the speed slightly on the other engine so that I'm maintaining my low fuel consumption speed of about 6 knots. What I found is that I burn about 1.5 times as much fuel in the engine that's running. So I save about 25% compared to running both engines together. Although the engine that is running, in order to keep up at this speed, it was running a little bit warm, about 190 degrees or so, and I should really stay away from temperatures that high. There's lots of these little spoil islands where the Corps of Engineers dredged up stuff and dumped it here when they made the safe channel. And these people are enjoying a pleasant afternoon swimming in the river. And these are the kayaks they use to paddle out to that little island. Here I am waving to my YouTube viewers. Hi there. Here's another one of these little islands with a big crowd of people on it. There's several boats with people on this island, and even this tent set up. So I guess someone is planning to spend the night there or is having an extended stay on the island. And here I am again enjoying the autopilot. I do go back to the driver's seat and drive when there's other traffic going by. Having the autopilot drive is nice for another reason, in that I can do photography and really things that would be difficult if I had to concentrate on driving all the time. Here I'm putting in a little course correction to the autopilot and kicking back once again. I usually drive myself when I go through bridges because the channel is very narrow in between them. There's two kinds of bridges. There's drawbridges like the previous one that can have a section that can actually open and allow very tall boats to go through an open section. And then there's bridges like this one that are high enough that most sailboats can go through. This one the channel is blocked by that barge that was doing some construction work. So I'm going through the next span over. And I'm not really going between the fenders where the safe channel is supposed to be. I just kind of hoped that it was deep enough between that other span and went for it. Here my chart plotter is holding a course of 186 degrees. And my compass is slowly turning. Spinning ever so slowly one way and then back the other way, and just watch how far it goes. I mean, it just turns and turns and turns. Given that I would need to use this compass if my GPS failed, it's a little bit disturbing seeing it behave like this. Letting Otto drive the boat also gives me a chance to move around and capture different views of the boat driving along, like this one. And also like this one. I can't really stay at the back of the boat or in the cabin very long because I have to watch where the boat is going. So after less than a minute or so, I have to go back up to the fly bridge or at least some part of the boat where I can see what's coming up ahead. It's not a real hardship, though. Here I wave to a passing boat without even going back and pretending to drive while I go past them. So this is the first half of my trip south. Basically hanging out on the boat while Otto drives me along. And here I am driving myself through this narrow bit underneath this bridge. It's a lot easier on my back and just a whole lot easier in general to be able to move around from time to time and find different seating positions and stuff. I did part of this trip last year, and without the autopilot, just driving constantly every second of the way was exhausting after a time. I found that it helps my back a bit if I stand up here in the ladder going to the fly bridge, and I can support my weight by my hands there on the railing, and it kind of decompresses my spine and makes it feel a bit better. If you wave to passing boats, they'll usually wave back. Somewhere between Merritt Island and Juno Beach, I enjoy a zesty drink. These little squalls can come up with very little warning, and they don't last long, but they have very intense rain, lightning, and high winds. Most of the time I would put the bimini tops down. Oh, this is Juno Beach, and I have to go between those orange markers and the green one and try not to run over these people sitting on their kayaks in the middle of the channel. This guy actually dropped his skier in front of my boat several times, but I didn't get any video of that because I was too busy making sure that I wasn't going to run over anybody or collide with the ski boat. But I did get a little bit of video here. For miles and miles there were these rock piles. And any place there was a break in the rock piles or a little creek off to the side where I might be able to anchor, there were these warnings of submerged rocks. So I was too intimidated to try and pull into any of these little openings for fear that there were more rocks like that piled up on the bottom. And this just goes on and on for miles and miles. And in places where there were side canals or bays where I might be able to pull off and anchor, they were blocked off with these poles and floats and these intimidating signs talking about like private neighborhoods. And this other one here that talks about a private waterway and no trespassing. So I was too intimidated to find any place to anchor. And a little after sunset, I found this marina, but it was closed when I got there, so I tied up to the gas dock, and the people in this giant sport fisherman actually called the cops on me. They said I couldn't be here because they paid a lot of money to park there and they couldn't have just anyone tying up overnight. The police fortunately allowed me to stay the night. This little pool here is apparently for the private use of just those two big yachts parked ahead of the gas dock. This other pool is for the hotel guests and people at the other parts of the marina. And just a couple hours south of there, I found myself in Lake Worth, which if I had known, I probably would have just continued south another couple of hours in the dark and pulled off the channel and anchored here. This is where I will anchor the next time I come through this part of Florida. Lake Worth is about the last of the wide parts of the river before you get to the port of Palm Beach. And this is near the port. This is an anchorage for sailboats, and there's a bigger anchorage just a little bit further up. And room pretty much to park anything, including cruise ships and big container ships and stuff at the dock. And as a bonus, I got to see this little research submarine being towed around just inside the port of Palm Beach and being followed by its tender research ship.